Good afternoon. I am meteorologist James Olive here with Dynamic Weather Agency LLC. Today, giving you your weather forecast update on this October 29th, 2021. In today's video, we'll be talking about strong winds across parts of the Gulf Coast and into the Mid-Atlantic, flooding across the Mid-Atlantic and into the northern Appalachian Mountains today, and then moving its way on into the Northeast and into the New England territories tomorrow. Cold polar air moving on in to start off the month of November with the potential for some snow. Before we continue with today's video, I do encourage you guys to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It does help out the YouTube algorithm, allowing my videos to be viewed by more people and allow me to do my part as a Weather Ready Nation ambassador in creating a Weather Ready Nation. Also, head on down to that description section of this video where you can find links to our social media, our website dynamicweatheragency.com, where you can find more weather information including forecasts, forecast charts, radar, our interactive tropical tracker, and a lot more. And last but not least, be sure to head on over to our Patreon page where you can help support this channel, allowing me to create more content for you guys here, such as chasing footage, funding our research here, along with doing website upgrades, and much more here at Dynamic Weather Agency for you guys. Starting off with today's video, the first thing we're going to be taking a look at is some of those current National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories. We still have some high wind advisories and high wind warnings still in effect across a few areas of the United States, mostly around the Gulf Coast region still, and up in the Mid-Atlantic. Now, yesterday we were seeing these winds across parts of the central and southern plains, where across parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, into Texas, we were seeing wind gusts anywhere between 50 to 60 miles an hour, with some of the highest wind reportings I was seeing yesterday, and some of the local LSR reports were around, the highest one I saw was around 67 miles per hour. Now, taking a closer look at some of these high wind advisories, high wind warnings. Now, we do still have a couple high wind advisories across some of the southern portions of the Louisiana parishes and across the Florida panhandle. You can still see places like Mobile, Panama City, Tallahassee, Albany, Georgia still have some of those high wind advisories still in effect for today, and most of these are going to be in effect until about 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this evening, with west winds about 15 to 25 miles per hour, some gusts up to about 40 miles an hour across this area. And of course, with these high wind advisories, there is the possibility for some tree branches being damaged, and also the possibility for some power outages to occur with some of these high winds. And also, it will be unsafe travels for those high-profile vehicles. And again, we also have some of those high wind advisories still in effect today across parts of the Mid-Atlantic, even along the eastern coast of the United States. So, high wind warnings in some of the Appalachian Mountain region, up in some of those higher elevations of West Virginia and Virginia, and two parts of southwestern PA, just east of Pittsburgh and west of Altoona. And then again, we also have those wind advisories across Maryland, Virginia Beach, across some of the areas of Delaware, and into New York City. So quite a bit of wind advisories, and let's take a look at some of those wind gusts we have going on right now. Here's some of the most current wind gusts. Morgan City around 40, 24 in New Orleans. You can see some of those METAR stations and buoys just off the coast hitting around 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts. Again, 20s to 40 mile an hour wind gusts still possible across these areas from Mobile to Pensacola down to Panama City and Tallahassee still throughout the day today. Now, taking a look at one of our soundings that we have going on over this region. Well, why are we seeing these strong winds? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, synoptically, we have a very tight pressure and contour gradient aloft, and that's what's causing these strong winds in the low to mid levels. Second thing is we have steep low-level lapse rates. These steep low-level lapse rates and these strong surface winds are allowing for a lot of turbulent mixing in the atmosphere, allowing the cool air and stronger winds aloft to be able to mix on down to the surface. As we take a look at parts of the Mid-Atlantic, take a look at some of these wind gusts we're seeing across there right now. Again, Baltimore area around 31 mile per hour wind gusts. Virginia Beach 30. You can see some 36s over here as we start moving on towards the eastern portions of Maryland and over towards Delaware. Even some of those higher 20s in Pennsylvania, east of Pittsburgh and west Altoona, with some higher winds and some of those higher elevations approaching about 35 to 40 miles per hour. Again, here's one of our SQTs over there. While the winds are not completely in phase through the lower levels of the atmosphere, just right above the surface near 700 and 850 millibars, we do have a 50 knot low-level jet moving on through the area. And while these winds are still not relatively in phase, some Now, taking a look at our current surface analysis, why are we seeing these strong winds? Well, we still have this barotropic low pressure system, this occluded barotropic low pressure system. There's a little bit of advection going on with this, but mostly this is a barotropic type low pressure system, as it's become almost a cutoff flow in the upper levels. And we'll take a look at that here in a little bit. But we still have this very tight gradient across Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and this tight pressure gradient is driving those very strong winds. That change in pressure over a very short distance is going to allow for some very strong wind gusts, while these contours on over here across the Four Corners region are a lot looser and are the pressure is changing less rapidly over a shorter distance. We have lighter winds over here. So wherever we have these tight, strong gradients is where we're going to see very strong winds. Again, we also have a tight gradient up here in the Mid-Atlantic and Northern Appalachian Mountain area, and that's where we're going to see strong winds develop later on today. Now, taking a look at this system again, taking a look at some of our upper air charts, you're going to see how dynamic this system is. Take a look. This system is vertically stacked all the way down to the surface, from 500 millibars all the way down to the surface, even at 300 millibars. But you can see the strong winds on the west side of this low becoming subgeostrophic, and then those winds speeding up as they move on out of the low, becoming supergeostrophic as they move towards the apex of the ridge. And one thing to note about these winds too, as we take a look at our charts, they are coming from the same direction. They're relatively in phase, and that is what is causing that vertically mixing of those winds from aloft down towards the surface. Now, I also want to show you kind of what's going on too here at 300 millibars. We're about to see a pattern change. Our PFJ is coming on in across the Pacific Northwest. We have a little bit of diverging fingers of the PFJ, but you can see how this ridge is building on in over the northeast. This is kind of a wave-induced ridge that we have moving on into here, and this low is going to become cut off, and the jet's going to reform to the north for the most part until a short wave is able to kick this low out off towards the northeast. Now, taking a look at our HRRR 36-hour forecast all the way until about 7 a.m. Saturday, like I said, we're still going to see strong winds across parts of the central and southern plains today. While they're not as strong as they were yesterday, they're still 40 to about 50 mile per hour wind gusts that could still be possible across that area today due to that tight gradient on the west side of that low, that tight contour gradient aloft on the west side of that low, and those winds still being in phase, mixing on down to the surface. Again, strong surface winds are going to continue today along the Gulf Coast region, and then we're going to see increasing winds across the mid-Atlantic into the northeast today as we move into the overnight hours with, anywhere from 35 to even about 60 mile per hour wind gusts could be possible across this area, especially on over the ocean water area just east of Delaware. Strong winds are still possible today across that area. I want to take a look at the National Weather Service forecast for that area. You can see like near Lexington Park, 58 mile per hour wind gusts are forecasted across there from the National Weather Service. You can see Annapolis 45, Washington DC 36, Dover 48, Wilmington 36. So very strong winds across portions of Maryland today into parts of Delaware, and then again across some of those higher elevations near Somerset, some 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts could be possible across that area east of Pittsburgh, west of Altoona, and then Hagerstown 37 mile an hour wind gusts, South Bel Air 34. So still strong winds are going to be possible today across parts of the mid-Atlantic and into parts of those northern Appalachian Mountain region. Now, not only are we still tracking the threat for, those high winds today, we're also monitoring the potential for some wet weather, and we are monitoring the potential for excessive rainfall today. There's a slight risk across parts of the mid-Atlantic, northern Appalachian Mountains region, across West Virginia, Maryland, and into parts of southern PA today. So you can see South Altoona, Harrisburg, and including places like Baltimore and Alexandria. Excessive rainfall is expected today for heavy precipitation, and this is the day one quantitative precipitation outlook today. You can see the big swath of 1.25 inches of rain as noted by that more teal color, and then as we start moving to those purples, that's from about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and as we start moving into some of those reds colors, that's about 2.5 inches of rain. So a big swath of anywhere from 1.25 inches to about 3 inches of rain could be possible today across parts of the Appalachian Mountain region into the mid-Atlantic, across southern PA, West Virginia, Virginia, and into parts of Maryland today. And most of this is going to be due to enhancements from that low that was moving across the Gulf yesterday, drawing up a lot of moisture over this region and being enhanced by orographic effects due to the elevation over these areas. So that's why we're going to see some of that heavy rainfall today. Tomorrow, this is going to move off to the north and to the east a little bit more, up towards the eastern New England territories, more for Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, into parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine, where the threat's going to be for tomorrow. Taking a look at our day 1 through 3, again, you can see that heavy rain today expected to cross parts of the Mid-Atlantic, Northern Appalachian Mountain region. As we move into day 2, that's going to move on up towards the Portland, Boston area, into places of parts of Massachusetts, Vermont, and into parts of southern Maine, where we're expected to see most of our precipitation tomorrow. Now, I think the big thing we want to talk about now is taking a look at the long-range weather and some of that cold air and the potential for a couple of snow events that we're going to be taking a look at. So one of the first things I want you guys to take a look at is we're going to be taking a look at our sea surface temperature anomalies. And I want to show you guys this region right here across the eastern and central Pacific right here. Notice all these really cool ocean water temperatures right here. This is what we look at whenever we're talking about El Niños or La Niñas. And since we have cooler than normal ocean water temperatures right here, this is a La Niña. We have a lot of upwelling of very cool ocean waters right here along the coast of South America, and a lot of very strong easterly trade winds transporting that water westward across the central Pacific, and then those cool ocean waters are downwelling across the western Pacific. And I want to show you guys the typical weather patterns we typically see with a La Nina, especially as we move into the winter. What ends up happening is we have ridging across the basically the the Pacific area. And this causes our jet stream to move and ridge over the eastern Pacific, and then have these deep upper level troughs move through the central United States and into the East Coast. This brings cooler air down from the north, wetter conditions in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of drier and warmer air across the southern portions of the United States, and again, wetter conditions up in the Midwest and into the Northeast. Now, as we take a look at what we've been so far for the month of October, now taking a look at what a typical, La Nina pattern looks like is we have ridging across the eastern Pacific right here, causes our jet stream to extend poleward across parts of the eastern Pacific, and then allows for it to trough down across parts of the central United States, and then ridge back upwards across the eastern portions of the United States. It creates wetter conditions across the Pacific Northwest, warmer and drier conditions across the southern portions of the United States, and wetter conditions across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, and cold air is allowed to funnel in behind these troughs. Now, taking a look at what the pattern's been like so far for the month of October, so far we've seen pretty much really warm conditions across the eastern 2/3 of the United States, and I want to show you that. So across the eastern 2/3 of the United States, pretty much anywhere east of the Rockies was relatively warm, all the way across the upper Mississippi River Valley into the Great Lakes and the Ohio River Valley, and even into parts of the Northeast. Relatively warmer than average temperatures for the most part across the eastern portions of the United States. To the west of that, in parts of the Pacific Northwest and the southwestern portions of the United States, cooler and below average temperatures across this region. Below average, above average. Now, how's this temperature pattern looked over the past 7 days? Over the past 7 days, it's been warmer across the southern portions of the United States, even across the eastern coast, all the way up into the northeast. And then we have some cool air moving on into the northern plains and into the northern Mississippi Valley. Cooler temperatures across California and the southwestern United States. Now take a look at taking a look at the Climate Prediction Center day 6 through 10 temperature outlook. This is for November 3rd through the 7th. Take a look now. Now the eastern two-thirds of the United States, so basically everywhere east of the Rockies, is going to be expecting well below average temperatures. Besides this little small portion of Florida where some above average temperatures are expected to continue, for the most part, cool air is expected to be able to begin to spill on into the northern plains, into the Great Lakes, central and southern plains, into the southeast, and into the mid-Atlantic and northeast for the most part over the November 3rd through November 7th period. And I want you guys to take a look at some of the models right here, depicting that. Here's the GEFS on the left and the European model on the right. Take a look at that. Well below average temperatures for the most part, both models in pretty good consistency. Warmer across the western portions of the United States in both models. You can see it right here. Warmer on the western, cooler to the east, European model is expecting a lot more cooler temperatures than the GEFS model for the most part over the next 5 to 10 days, but we'll have to continue to monitor this to see which one tends to be more accurate. I mean, the European model is more of a high resolution model. You can see up here a lot more the better jaggedness in this, indicating the terrain a little bit better compared to what the GEFS model is on the left hand side. But as you can see, for the most part, both models are indicating that we're going to have relatively cool weather for the eastern two-thirds of the United States. Well, why is this going to happen? Well, the first thing we need to take a look is what's going on with our oscillations. First, taking a look at our Eastern Pacific oscillation. It's been up here in this positive phase for much of October, and it's starting to begin to transition into this negative phase, and it's forecasted to be there for a couple of days before moving on up back into this neutral, maybe more positive phase that's going on here. And I want to show you guys what this typical negative EPO pattern looks like. So with a negative EPO, we have a ridge that develops over Alaska and the Eastern Pacific. You can see that here, the higher heights indicated here, that ridging in the height contours with the 500 millibar geopotential height. So warmer 500 millibar height anomalies, warmer temperatures across Alaska and Eastern Pacific. And then we have these deep upper level troughs that are able to develop over North America with cooler air funneling on in. And this will produce a more mild pattern across Alaska and across western Canada and the Pacific Northwest, and a cooler pattern for the rest of the lower 48. Not only do we need to take a look at our EPO, let's take a look at our PNA. This is our Pacific North American oscillation, and this is going to become very positive over the next coming days and kind of remain positive for the most part. And I want to show you what this is going to look like. So here's the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast, 78 hours out on the GEFS model for Monday morning on November 1st. We have a negative EPO, a positive PNA, bringing above average temperatures to parts of the interior prairies of Canada and British Columbia, and below normal temperatures across the northern lower 48 and spilling on into the rest of the lower 48. And this is that, and take a look at what's also going on. We have this omega blocking pattern. And as we take a look at our 500 millibar height anomalies, our forecast here in just a little bit, this blocking pattern is going to help prevent these troughs and these short waves with our negative EPO from moving its way into the western portions of the United States. Now, we'll still see some active weather across the Pacific Northwest, some rain on over there, but for the most part, it's going to protect the western portions of the United States from any major storm systems for the most part, with them redeveloping on the eastern side of the Rocky Mountain range, where these troughs are going to start spilling on in and all that cooled air. Now, I want to show you basically some of those temperature anomalies as we move into the 4th of November. Take a look at how cool some of this air is going to get with some of these temperatures well above 10 degrees below normal for this time of the year across much of the central plains, northern plains, into the southern plains, and back up into the Corn Belt, into the ag region of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and into Michigan, where some very cool temperatures are going to come in. You can see some of these temperatures here approaching near 20 degrees below normal, with some of this cold polar air that's going to be moving on in. Now, some people are going to say that this is an Arctic blast. Well, this is not really an Arctic blast per se, because this is not Arctic air. Temperatures in the 40s, 30s, and 40s with lows in the 20s and teens. That's not Arctic air. That is a extremely cold polar air mass, not Arctic air. So you might see videos, you might see people start saying, oh, this is an Arctic blast, Arctic outbreak. It's not an Arctic outbreak until the 1,500 millibar thickness line hits below 510 decameters. It is not Arctic air. And the lowest I think we're going to see across the northern portions of the United States is around 522 decameters. So still got a ways to go until we actually reach Arctic air. Now, continuing to take a look at our long-range models, first I want to have you guys take a look at our 500 millibar height anomalies. Again, this is the European model. Take a look at this. You got that barotropic cold core low-pressure system that's becoming cut off from the main, from the jet stream, and it's going to remain down here until a shortwave moves on out of the Canadian prairie into the northern portions of the United States and is able to kick this low on out of the region. And we're going to see some cooler, below-average temperatures today due to that increased cloud cover and that cool air cut off with this cold core barotropic low pressure system we have. And as we go in through time, watch as that ridge begins to develop across the western portions of the British Columbia into the Northwest Territories and the interior prairies of Canada, where we have this negative EPO that's beginning to develop across the eastern Pacific right here. We have this strong positive PNA developing, that Pacific North American oscillation that we have. And again, take a look at this shortwave beginning to develop through the northern plains. And what's going to happen with this? So first of all, with that ridge that we have high pressure under that ridge right here. So here's that ridge right here. And it's that positive PNA. Here's that negative EPO, that trough across the eastern Pacific. We have high pressure here across the northwest, and we have cool air funneling in on the front side of this high pressure system and a shortwave trough axis moving through the interior plains, northern plains, excuse me. And I want to show you what's going to happen here as we continue in through time. That shortwave is going to help kick out that low and push it up towards the northeast, and that's what we're going to see happen here. And then we have that cold air just sitting across parts of the northern plains. Why do we have that? Well, one, we have this strong omega blocking pattern as it makes the Greek letter omega right here. That's going to be blocking this EPO and this trough axis and these short waves from moving on into the western portions of the United States. And we have another strong ridge developing over the Atlantic, and that's also creating a blocking pattern over here. That's preventing this cold air from retreating. So this cold air is going to stay here for just a couple of days, and you'll see that it's going to just stay, continue to deepen with that trough axis. And as by the time we move into about the third into the fourth, we'll begin to see our big storm system right here begin to dive on down into the northeast, where we could see a very strong front and potentially some snow here on the 5th into the 6th, moving on in with another nor'easter type storm system moving on through the northeastern territories. Now, taking a look at your maximum temperatures over the next couple of days. Now, for today, you can see those well below average temperatures with that barotropic cold core low pressure system located on over here. A lot of cloud cover, keeping those temperatures mitigated today. But take a look at the northern plains today. Warmer than average temperatures today. Highs today in the 60s and 70s. But watch what happens as we move into tomorrow. Some of that cold air is going to begin to start funneling on in. As we move into Saturday, cooler for still the southeastern and eastern third of the United States. But by the time we move into Sunday, take a look at that. How much that cold air is going to begin spilling on in by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and here we are for Thursday. For the most part, highs are going to be in the 40s to about the mid to upper 50s for most of the eastern 2/3 of the United States, with well below average temperatures. Now, taking a look at our low temperatures for the next couple of days. Again, today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Cooler than average temperatures for the most part. While lows will be relatively more closer to normal, those high temperatures are definitely going to be well below average. Now, taking a look at the European model, taking a look at the long range, for the most part for the rest of the day, there's going to be a lot of widespread rain and precipitation across parts of the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, as some of this moisture continues to wrap around this barotropic low pressure system across the area. The front is way off of the coast of the United States now, beginning to still push off to the east. And we have some of that precipitation and moisture still continuing today across parts of the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we continue in through time, we'll see high pressure begin building on in to the northern plains here. Maybe some isolated snow showers across the higher elevations into Montana and into Wyoming. As we continue out, this is now taking a look at about Saturday now, Saturday evening. And that high pressure is going to continue to build into the western portions of the United States. That low is going to continue to track off to the north and to the east. You can see the model also picking up on some of that heavy precipitation across the mid-Atlantic region. And again, that's going to continue to move its way into the northeast tomorrow. Again, look at that heavy precipitation across parts of Massachusetts, into Maine, and Vermont, Rhode Island area, like we were talking about. That snow beginning to push on into Montana, Wyoming. And then as we move into about Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll see a new low pressure system probably begin to develop east of the Rocky Mountain region. We'll see this front begin to drag on into parts of the south central United States, across the Ozarks, into the Tennessee Valley, and then eventually into the southeast. By the time we get into Thursday, may see some snow develop again across parts of Colorado, western Kansas, into parts of western Oklahoma and northern Texas, as that cold air continues to build on in, as this high pressure continues to ridge southward, bringing in cold air behind that. Possibly some snowfall on Thursday in the morning and into parts of the afternoon, across parts of the higher elevations in the Appalachian Mountain region. Again, that front continuing to dig on to the south, with precipitation stretching across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, into the Tennessee Valley and up into the mid-Atlantic. And then as we continue on through Thursday, that low pressure system is going to continue to move off to the east, with more rain continuing across the mid-Atlantic. And then on Thursday into Friday, we'll watch another low pressure system begin to develop across parts of the eastern portions of the Rocky Mountain region in Colorado, and that's going to begin to bring rain to parts of the southern plains, the Gulf Coast region, and the southeast. And again, snow continuing possibly across parts of the northeast as this continues as we move into Sunday. I'm meteorologist James Long, signing off for today. You guys have a great and wonderful day.